Dr. Elora Devereaux sat in the dimly lit laboratory aboard Vanguard Station, her eyes fixed on the strange alien artifact in front of her. The artifact had been retrieved from an abandoned warship drifting in the far reaches of space. It was unlike anything Earth scientists had ever encountered. A smooth, metallic object with intricate carvings that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. The artifact was the very definition of mystery. Its surface was cold to the touch, but there was something about it that felt alive. Elara's mind raced with possibilities. This was the discovery of a lifetime. Vanguard Station, orbiting a barren moon in the farthest corner of the uncharted frontier, was humanity's most secretive military and scientific facility. It was a place where only the brightest minds gathered to unravel the mysteries of the universe, and yet, it was eerily quiet. The corridors were often empty, the only sounds being the hum of advanced machinery and the occasional hiss of the air systems. The station was more of a fortress than a research facility, hidden away from prying eyes and the chaos of the outside world. But for Dr. Elora Devereaux, it was the perfect environment to push the boundaries of human knowledge. For the past few weeks, Elora had been working around the clock on analyzing the artifact. The initial scans had shown strange energy readings unlike anything Earth had ever detected. A pattern had started to emerge, one that seemed to pulse with a rhythm, almost as if the artifact was alive. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this object than it appeared. There had been rumors around the station, whispers about the power it could unlock, but none of them had prepared Elora for what she would find that night. It was late. The station was in its usual quiet state, and Elora was alone in the lab. She stared at the readings on her screen, trying to make sense of them. The energy fluctuations were growing stronger, and for a moment, it felt like the artifact was responding to her. Her heart raced. Was it possible? Could the object be communicating? Then, a sharp beep interrupted her thoughts. It was a strange, low-frequency transmission that wasn't supposed to be there. Elora's fingers hovered over the keyboard as she quickly analyzed the data. The transmission was garbled, filled with static and strange frequencies. But one line stood out, clear as day, and sent a shiver down her spine. "They are watching. The silent ship is coming." The words echoed in her mind, repeating like a haunting refrain. She leaned back in her chair, her mind spinning. Who was watching? What was the silent ship? And why was it coming? She stared at the artifact, which now seemed even more unsettling. What had she stumbled upon? Elora quickly ran a search through the station's databases, hoping to find some information that could explain the message. But there was nothing. No records, no mention of a silent ship. Her stomach tightened. How could there be nothing about it? A ship this important should have been noted somewhere. Yet, all she could find was silence. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the door opening behind her. A man in a military uniform stepped inside, his expression serious. "Dr. Devereaux," he said, his voice low. "We need to talk." It was Commander Eric Holt, one of the senior officers stationed at Vanguard. He was part of the military wing, focused on securing humanity's interests in the farthest corners of space. Elora knew him well, though their relationship was strictly professional. He was all about practicality, while she was driven by curiosity. And right now, it was clear he wasn't here to discuss the science. "There's been a development," Holt continued. "We've detected an anomaly. Something's moving toward us, and it's coming fast. Our sensors can't get a clear read, but it's there. It's big." He paused, glancing at the artifact. "We need to talk about what you're working on. The higher-ups are concerned." Elora's heart skipped a beat. The timing couldn't have been worse. The message she had just decoded, combined with Holt's cryptic warning, was enough to set off a dozen alarms in her head. The silent ship, it was coming, and it was headed straight for Earth. "What do you mean, it's big?" Elora asked, trying to mask the fear in her voice. Holt met her gaze, his eyes serious. "It's an unknown craft, but we suspect it might be a warship of some kind. And it's moving at an unbelievable speed. We don't know its intentions, but given the location, we're preparing for the worst." Elora swallowed hard. The possibility that the silent ship and the approaching vessel were connected was too much of a coincidence to ignore. Could the message have been a warning? Was Earth about to face a threat it wasn't prepared for? "The artifact," Elora said, her voice trembling slightly. "It's not just a relic. It's a beacon. It's been activated. The ship in the message, it's real. It's coming." Holt's eyes narrowed. "And what does that mean for us?" "I don't know yet," she replied, shaking her head. "But I think it's here, and we might have just triggered its arrival. And if that's true, then we're about to face something we can't even begin to understand." As Holt turned to leave, he paused at the door, looking back at her. "Stay sharp, Dr. Devereaux. We don't know who or what is out there." With that, the door slid shut behind him, leaving Elora alone in the quiet lab. She looked at the artifact once more, its cold surface reflecting the dim light. It wasn't just a discovery anymore, it was a countdown to something far more terrifying. The silent ship was coming, and Elora had no idea what to do next. The moment Earth's telescopes detected the silent ship, panic set in. The massive black void ship had appeared on the edge of the solar system, its design completely alien, unlike anything Earth scientists had ever seen. The ship was perfectly silent, almost like it existed outside the fabric of space itself, its movements unsettlingly smooth and undetectable by any traditional scans. No one knew what its intentions were, or even if it had any. The vast, empty space around it seemed to swallow all forms of detection. Dr. Elora Devereaux sat in her lab, staring at the endless data streaming across her monitor. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to process the information. Despite all her training, she couldn't make sense of the silent ship's approach. The ship wasn't just a mystery, it was a looming threat. Elora's mind kept returning to the message she had uncovered weeks ago. They are watching. The silent ship is coming. Now, the ship was here. But what did it mean? Why had it come, and what did it want? Word of the silent ship's arrival spread quickly, sparking debates in every corner of Earth's leadership. Within the high-ranking officials of the United Earth Council, arguments broke out between those who wanted to make contact with the ship and those who believed it was far too dangerous to engage with. Some factions, led by ambitious leaders, saw this as a new opportunity. To them, this ship, if it could be controlled, could represent an unprecedented leap in technology and power. They were determined to seize the moment, to expand humanity's reach beyond the stars, regardless of the risks. On the other hand, Elora and many of her colleagues at Vanguard Station were deeply concerned. The arrival of the silent ship couldn't be ignored, but it also couldn't be rushed into. It was clearly not a ship that meant humanity's well-being. The tension within the station was palpable as the political divisions deepened. Some military leaders, particularly General Markov, interpreted the ship's arrival as a sign that humanity was on the brink of an alien war. His faction believed the ship was a prelude to invasion, and they were already making plans to defend Earth at all costs, even if that meant firing first. But Elora wasn't so sure. The more she learned, the more her gut told her that the silent ship's purpose was not war. It was something else, something much darker and deeper. She had spent years studying alien technology and deciphering ancient messages, but the mystery of the silent ship was unlike anything she had ever encountered. And then, the artifact that had been the catalyst of all this, the one she had worked so tirelessly to understand, had revealed its true nature. One evening, as Elora ran another set of scans on the artifact, a horrifying realization struck her. The artifact wasn't just a beacon. It was a weapon of mass destruction, hidden by an ancient civilization long dead. The ship, the one that was coming, wasn't just any ship. It was a remnant of a war fought eons ago by a species that had since vanished. The artifact had been designed not to communicate, but to trigger the arrival of the silent ship, a ship that carried within it the power to destroy entire planets. Her heart raced as she reviewed the data. Earth's leaders had known about this. They had been hiding this truth for years, afraid that if the galaxy knew of the weapon's existence, it would set off a chain of events that would throw the universe into chaos. And now, that chaos was about to become reality. The silent ship was coming, and Elora had to decide whether to expose the truth and risk everything, or to remain silent and protect humanity from itself. She felt a wave of nausea wash over her. To expose the truth could lead to panic, war, and possibly the destruction of Earth. But keeping the secret meant allowing the arrival of a weapon that could potentially wipe out entire civilizations, including her own. It was a moral dilemma unlike any Alara had ever faced. But the situation was growing worse. The political tension between factions had only escalated, and Alara's position at Vanguard Station was no longer safe. Some of her closest colleagues were turning on her, unable to reconcile their desire for power with the looming threat she had uncovered. Among them was Dr. Leon Rivas, Alara's trusted colleague and longtime friend. He had been working with her on analyzing the artifact, but now she noticed a change in him. He had grown distant, secretive, and increasingly hostile. One evening, Alara confronted Leon in the quiet halls of Vanguard Station. "What's going on, Leon?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "I know something's happening. You've been acting strange." He hesitated, avoiding her gaze. "You don't understand, Alara. We can't just let this opportunity slip away. The silent ship, if we control, it could change everything. Think about it. We would have access to technology that could make humanity the most powerful force in the galaxy." Alara shook her head. "No, Leon. You're not seeing the bigger picture. This isn't about control. It's about survival. This ship is a weapon. A weapon designed to destroy." Leon's eyes flashed with a mixture of anger and something darker. "You're wrong. You've been blinded by your idealism, Alara. The galaxy has been waiting for someone to take charge. If we can harness this power, I don't care about power," Alara snapped, her voice rising. "I care about the truth. And the truth is, this ship isn't here to help us. It's here to end us." But Leon's expression darkened further. "Then you're a fool." Before Alara could respond, he turned and stormed off, leaving her alone with her thoughts. His betrayal cut deep. She had trusted him. But now, it was clear that he had been working for a shadowy corporate faction, one that wanted to seize control of the silent ship and its devastating technology for their own gain. He had been manipulating her all along. Alara was left with a sinking feeling in her stomach. What else had he been hiding? What else was Earth's leadership hiding? Determined to uncover the full truth, Alara turned to the silent ship itself. In the hours that followed, she accessed every fragment of data she could find, every alien symbol and artifact linked to the ship. And then she uncovered something even more unsettling. The silent ship was not just a weapon. It was a remnant of an ancient war fought by a civilization long gone in apocalyptic conflict that had erased their race from existence. The symbols she had found were warnings, hidden messages left by the extinct species that had fought the war, warning all who would listen of the galaxy-wide consequences of awakening the silent ship. The ship's purpose was not to attack, but to act as a harbinger of doom. It carried with it the power to awaken a force and entity that had destroyed countless civilizations before and would do so again if it were released. Alara felt a chill down her spine as she stared at the final set of symbols, her mind racing with the implications. The silent ship was not here to conquer or defend. It was here to signal the return of the Hunger, an ancient, unstoppable force that fed on the destruction of worlds. And now, the Hunger was coming. The tension that had been building for weeks reached its peak when the silent ship, now hovering at the outskirts of the solar system, began broadcasting a cryptic transmission directly to Earth's central governments. The message was untranslatable, a series of distorted frequencies and symbols that no human could decipher. It wasn't a communication, they realized it was a warning. The ship pulsed ominously, releasing a signal that caused widespread panic. Governments scrambled for answers, but there were no clear solutions. Only fear. As chaos rippled through the planet, Dr. Alara Devereaux's worst fears began to take form. The silent ship wasn't just an alien curiosity or a potential weapon. It was a harbinger of something far worse, an ancient force that could destroy everything. She had tried to warn everyone, but no one had listened, and now the situation was spiraling beyond her control. In the hard Vanguard Station, Alara found herself in a tense standoff with Dr. Leon Rivas. What had once been a partnership based on mutual respect and shared discovery had quickly soured. Rivas, her closest colleague, had been working behind her back for a faction of the military-industrial complex, believing that the arrival of the silent ship could be turned into an opportunity to harness unimaginable power. The same power that Alara had been warning about. Rivas, in his desperate pursuit of glory, had activated a prototype device, a risky and experimental communication link intended to open a bridge between Earth's command center and the silent ship. It was a bold move, dangerous, reckless, but he believed it could allow Earth to control the ship. Rivas was so consumed by the idea of power that he ignored the warnings, brushing aside Alora's repeated attempts to make him see reason. "You don't understand, Alora," Rivas had said earlier, his voice sharp with conviction. "This is the moment we've been waiting for. The ship can give us the power to dominate the galaxy. You can't stop it. No one can." Alara had tried to explain, to make him see that the ship wasn't meant for conquest. It was meant to protect them from something far worse. But Rivas didn't care. His eyes had glazed over with ambition, clouding his judgment. And now, that ambition had opened a communication link between Earth and the silent ship. Alara raced to the bridge, her mind spinning with the implications. As she entered the control room, she saw the glowing interface of the device that Rivas had activated. The ship's response was immediate. The dark, ominous pulse of the vessel grew stronger, its signal flooding the station's systems. The communication bridge was open, but Alara knew the danger that lay on the other side. ASA, the transmission began to stabilize. A clear image emerged in alien form, humanoid in shape but composed of shifting shadows, stood before her. It spoke in a language that was beyond human comprehension, its voice deep and resonating, but somehow cold and devoid of emotion. The words were unintelligible, but they were unmistakably a warning. In that moment, the truth came crashing down on Alara. Through the bridge, she learned what the silent ship was really trying to convey. It wasn't a weapon of war. It was a message. The creators of the ship had been a peaceful race, wiped out by a force that was far beyond the capacity of any known civilization. The ship's mission was not to conquer. It was to warn the galaxy of the coming entity, the Hunger, an ancient force that devoured entire civilizations without mercy or prejudice. The Hunger was unstoppable. It consumed everything, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. And it was heading toward Earth. Alara's heart raced. She had been right all along, but no one had listened. Humanity was standing at the edge of an abyss, and if Rivas had his way, they would dive straight into it. As the implications of what she had learned began to sink in, Alara's thoughts turned to Earth. Could humanity survive what was coming? The Hunger didn't care about political boundaries or the power of military forces. It simply destroyed. She tried to warn Rivas, but it was too late. The transmission from the silent ship intensified, as if the entity that had created the vessel could sense that something was wrong. The voice of the shadowy figure became more urgent. "Do you hear it, Alara?" Rivas asked, his voice filled with awe. "It's power. It's here. The power we can control." "No, Leon," Alara whispered, shaking her head. "It's not power. It's death." But Rivas refused to see reason. His obsession with the ship had blinded him to the truth. The device he had activated was already syncing with the silent ship, and in his mind, the path forward was clear. If they could master the technology, they could use it to ascend to a new level of existence. They could rule the galaxy. Alara's hands shook as she watched him, a feeling of cold dread washing over her. She knew what she had to do. She had to destroy the bridge, sever the connection before the Hunger was unleashed. The longer the communication stayed open, the more the silent ship would influence Earth's systems. Humanity would be pulled into its orbit, and they would fall into the same trap that had destroyed the creators of the silent ship. "No," Rivas spat, stepping forward, his eyes blazing with anger. "You're too weak to see what this could mean for us. You'll be remembered as a fool." Alara stood tall, though her heart broke for the man she had once trusted. She had hoped there was still a part of him that could be reached, but it was gone now, consumed by ambition. The bridge was about to become a conduit for the Hunger. There was no time to waste. In that moment, Alara made the hardest decision of her life. She couldn't stop the ship by reasoning with Rivas, nor could she stop the arrival of the hunger by begging the government leaders. She had to destroy the link, destroy the silent ship itself, even if it meant sacrificing all the knowledge and technology it contained. With a final glance at Rivas, she initiated the shutdown protocol. The device began to pulse violently as Alora's hand hovered over the final button. Rivas lunged at her, but it was too late. The bridge was severed. The connection was broken. In a flash of light, the silent ship's signal went dark. The massive vessel, which had loomed so ominously in the depths of space, disappeared. The room fell silent. Rivas collapsed to his knees, his face contorted in shock and rage. Alara stood still, her heart heavy. She had saved Earth, but at what cost? The truth was clear now. The hunger would not be stopped by force or ambition. It was something far greater than any technology, any weapon. Humanity would have to find a way to face it together. And that, Alara realized, was a question for the future. The pressure in the control room was unbearable. Alara Devereaux stood before the countdown timer, the weight of her decision pressing down on her like 1,000 tons. The bridge to the silent ship had been severed, but the ship itself was still there, a silent, looming presence at the edge of the solar system. Its purpose was clear now. It wasn't a weapon, nor a gift. And now, she had to ensure that its message would never be fully realized. Rivas lay in a heap behind her, his betrayal having cost him everything. His desire for power, his refusal to see the truth, had led to this moment, the destruction of their only chance at control over something far beyond human comprehension. But Alara knew it had to be done. She couldn't let the silent ship's knowledge spread further, especially with the looming threat of the hunger still hanging over them like a sword. With a single press of a button, she initiated the detonation sequence. The ship's core, which had powered the vessel for eons, was set to collapse in on itself. It was a move of desperation, but it was their only option. The ship's dark, vast presence began to pulse with energy as the countdown clock ticked down to its final seconds. "Goodbye," Alara whispered to herself, knowing full well that this wasn't a victory. It was the only way to prevent a greater catastrophe. As she watched the countdown hit zero, the ship trembled violently. A deep rumbling shook the foundations of Vanguard Station, as if the ship itself was resisting the inevitable. Then, a blinding flash of light erupted, and for a brief, terrifying moment, Alara thought the entire station would be torn apart with it. But when the light finally dimmed, all that was left was the eerie silence of space. The silent ship was gone, reduced to cosmic dust. But as the station's systems began to stabilize, a faint hum echoed through the communications channels. Alara stared at the monitor in disbelief. A message barely audible, but still there came through the static. The words, broken and fragmented, echoed in her mind. "The silent watcher will return." The cold chill that crept up her spine was the only confirmation Alara needed. The silent ship had been destroyed, but the message wasn't over. It was never over. The silent watcher who, or whatever that was, would return, and this time, humanity would not have the element of surprise. The hunger was still out there, an unstoppable force that continued its unrelenting march across the stars. And the silent ship was just the first warning, a mere precursor to something far greater, far deadlier than they had ever imagined. Back on Earth, the reaction to the ship's destruction was mixed. Some hailed Alara as a hero, a savior who had prevented a potential catastrophe, while others called her reckless, too quick to destroy what could have been humanity's greatest asset. The debates raged on, but Alara remained distant, her mind consumed with the truth she had uncovered. The silent ship had been part of something larger, a galaxy-spanning effort to warn civilizations of the hunger, and the galaxy had no idea just how deep the threat ran. Her final meeting with Earth's leaders was a somber one. Alara stood before them in the High Council chamber, where the future of humanity would be decided. The leaders were no longer focused on the silent ship or its technology. Instead, they were looking at her, eyes heavy with the weight of what they had just learned. The room was quiet, the tension palpable. Alara could feel the eyes of the council members boring into her, expecting answers. They wanted to know what came next. They wanted to know if humanity was truly ready to face the unknown, to face something that no weapons or power could defeat. "What are we supposed to do now, Dr. Devereaux?" one of the leaders asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You've destroyed our only chance at controlling the silent ship. What does this mean for us?" Allura stood still for a moment, choosing her words carefully. The truth was simple, yet terrifying. It means we were lucky. We narrowly avoided destruction, but we can't pretend it won't come again. The hunger doesn't care about our weapons or our political borders. It only cares about consuming everything in its path. It has already wiped out entire civilizations that thought they were invincible. A silence hung in the room. Allura's words cut through the room like a blade, and no one spoke for several moments. The silent ship was a warning, she continued. It wasn't meant to give us power. It was meant to remind us of our place in the universe. We aren't the most important species in the galaxy. We're just one of many, and we can't control what's out there. The only thing we can control is how we react to it. One of the council members, a young woman whose face had been stern throughout the meeting, finally spoke up. "So what should we do now? How do we prepare for something we don't understand?" Allura looked around at the faces of the leaders, and for the first time, she saw the fear in their eyes. Not the fear of losing power or control, but the fear of the unknown, of a force they could not comprehend. The fear of being insignificant in a vast, uncaring universe. We need to focus on what we can control. We need to change our mindset. We must stop thinking of the galaxy as a place for us to conquer. We must learn from the civilizations that came before us, those who are now gone. We must prepare ourselves, not by building more weapons, but by understanding what's coming and how we can survive without falling into the same traps. The room was quiet, and no one responded immediately. The weight of her words hung in the air. Humanity had been given a glimpse into a future it wasn't ready for, and now the true challenge was in deciding how to move forward. Allura looked toward the window, where the stars glimmered faintly in the distance. The silent ship may have been destroyed, but its message had not been. The hunger was still out there, and no one knew when it would come. As Allura's mind drifted to the unknown, one thought lingered, one final question that would shape humanity's future. Can humanity rise above its primal instincts and avoid the fate of the civilizations that once lived in this galaxy? The answer, as always, was uncertain.